I had thought about because some people do this what book or movie or TV show have you been watching lately or something, but
Okay.
I feel like the episode's gone a little bit long, so we'll skip that for a later time when we want to fill some time or something.
Sure.
Unless you have something you really want to talk about. I know you've been all up in this J. Michael Straczynski biography, so
Yeah, I finished that autobiography. It's intense.
wow. What's the title?
It is called Becoming Superman.
Oh wow.
Because as a kid, he idolized like Superman in the comics and old TV shows, and he's like, I want to be like that guy, but for very sad reasons.
Right.
So, anyway, if you want to be horribly depressed, then you should go read J. Michael Straczynski's autobiography. There is a section in there where it talks about Deep Space Nine. His wife was interning at Star Trek: The Next Generation. Partially because Jerry Taylor, is that her name? Who was like a producer? Yeah. Like he had worked with Jerry Taylor when she was on, it wasn't Murder, She Wrote, it was Jake and the Fat Man, maybe?
Huh.
And so and then like Jerry Taylor and this other person who was her partner producing this show, David Mosinger, they bring him on to write on this show, and he actually didn't even want to write on the show because he thought the show was ridiculous. But after meeting with them, he's like, oh, these are really good people and creative, and so I want to work with them. And then they get fired from the show because one of the actors is trying to like get more control over the show and wants more say in what happens. So these producers get fired, and he's like, well, you're the ones who hired me. I didn't even care about being on the show. I'll quit if you guys are going to get fired. So they're friends after this, which helps his wife get this intern gig at The Next Generation.
Ah.
And so it looks like she's going to get hired on full time after her internship, to the point that they bring her in to this meeting on The Next Generation where they're announcing this new spinoff that they're going to do. And they're like, okay, so it's going to take place on the space station, and they start talking about it, and she just immediately jumps up and she's like, I can't be here for this. They're like, what are you talking about? My husband is working on a space station TV like sci-fi show. I can't be in the room for this. And they're like, oh, okay, no, yeah, that actually makes sense. Thanks for letting us know. You can go. And so she does not get to keep the job on Star Trek past her internship after that happened. But that was where he first got the indication that something is going on. And then apparently Walter Koenig calls him, and he's like, yeah, you're in trouble, because they're just selling Babylon 5 and they're about to get the pilot made or whatever. And Walter Koenig's like, yeah, this show shares like all of these similarities with the show that you're trying to make. You're in big trouble now.
Uh-oh.
And so, yeah, it's that's the part that is relevant to this show.
But I mean, he got his show after all, so
yeah. And apparently it gets like really, because his show gets put on this new network called PTEN that Warner Brothers is making, and this network is like a, you know how we talked about how the syndication works, where you sell them the show and they put it on whenever they have time during the week, right?
Right.
This is a network that is made specifically for that. And they're contracting with all of these local stations to use their shows that the network has. And syndication, these sort of things, they didn't make their own shows. This new network is going to make their own shows, and they're the ones who've picked up Babylon 5. But they keep they're not sure at first, but then they decide, okay, well, they didn't make anybody else. Any of their other new shows, they didn't have to make a pilot. They just picked them up. They're like, why don't you go ahead and do a pilot? They do the pilot, and they're like, we like it, but we're going to do focus groups, even though we told you before this that we're not going to do any focus groups. Focus groups really like it. We still don't know if we want to commit. And so this goes on for like a while. And he's like, I didn't understand, pick it up or don't pick it up. Why are we doing all of this weird stuff? It turns out that behind the scenes, he finds out years later, Warner Brothers and Paramount were initially in negotiations to create a network together that would do this.
Oh.
And so Paramount already had like this plan for Deep Space Nine, which he thinks is based on his pitch that he'd shown them all this material for Babylon 5 when he pitched Paramount this show. And apparently they were really interested at first, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, no, never mind. And then they come out with Deep Space Nine, which is super similar. But anyway, so there's this discussion when they're going to make the network together about like using this show or not using this show. And then apparently Warner Brothers just decides to screw Paramount over and do the network on their own. And so the people behind this guy that he heard from later was like, yeah, so like there was a question on whether they could actually do this since they'd been in discussions with Paramount, and this same idea was kind of going to get used on both sides. And so yeah, it's just super weird and convoluted, and there's all this like politics in the background of it that is very strange. But yeah, so Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5, lots of weird stuff going on there.
Yeah. Whose idea was Deep Space Nine, supposedly?
I don't know, actually.
Like, someone has to be credited as the person who came up with that idea, right?
Yeah, I think it... Like, when he talks about the, like, his wife being in that meeting, when they're telling everyone this is this new idea, I think it's, like, Rick Berman and, maybe Rick Berman and Michael Piller, who come in and, like, okay, we're going to do this. And so it may be like a Rick Berman thing, but he was just like, I can't believe that like these executive producers knew like that they were basically stealing this from me, because like, why would they have invited my wife to the meeting? There's no reason that you would bring her in if like the expectation when they brought this intern into the meeting was this is someone we're going to hire and they're going to work with us full time. Like, why you don't bring every intern in? They brought her in as like a special thing because there was this expectation she would continue. So it's like they wouldn't have done that if they knew that. Well,
I mean, maybe they were doing it for a cover. Like, if she works for Star Trek, then it's almost like a tacit. Like, it can be taken as like an approval by him or whatever. It's like, no, see, we're all good. His wife even works for us.
His theory at the time was that like the upper execs who he'd pitched to initially at Paramount had basically come to, when they're coming up with this new Star Trek pitch, they're like, hey, why don't we do something different? Like maybe have a space station or something. You know, you guys go kick around some of these ideas that we give you and you come up with something. So like maybe they had like kind of snuck in some of the seeds without telling anyone where they came from. But yeah, it's unclear.
I mean, it makes me think of Lost, where Lost, so there's like three, I forget the whole credit situation, but one of the guys that's always in the credits for Lost is the guy who came up with the idea. Okay. And he's literally just an executive who was at one of those like story retreats, and he basically just said like, what if we do Castaway the TV show?
Okay.
And then like I think he or someone else even wrote a script based on that, and the script was terrible, and they were like, this sucks. And then J.J. Abrams looked at it, he was like, oh yeah, this sucks. And then he like rewrote a brand new pilot. And then that's why J.J. Abrams gets credited as the creator, because he wrote the pilot, even though he never had anything to do with the whole rest of the show. I don't know. There's a whole story. I'm probably getting it like all wrong, but
I can't imagine like Castaway the TV show was just one guy and like, his volleyball or something like that. You would have to be an incredible actor to carry that like a TV show of that.
Yeah, it's like from the stuff I've seen, it's like the original script for the pilot was just like a straight up a bunch of people are stranded on an island, and it's like the pilot takes place over like 8 weeks or something like that.
Okay.
And then like J.J. Abrams looked at it, he's like, no, there's got to be something like mysterious and supernatural on this island. And like, there's got, it's got to be like a, more like close up, and like, I think he probably came up with the idea of the flashbacks and all that stuff. I don't know. I'm sure you can go look up like where the idea for Lost came from.
Yeah, I'll have to do that now.
Also, just because I know David Mamet, the screenwriter of our one of our favorite movies, Heist.
Yeah.
Recently came out with a memoir about Hollywood called Everywhere in Oink Oink.
Okay.
I just thought that was an amusing title.
Oh, okay. I thought we were going to get deeper into that. That is an amusing title.
I don't know anything else about this book other than the title. So,
man, Heist. That was a movie.
Yep.
I still one of my favorite random lines to use is just like, everyone needs money. That's why they call it money.
Yep.
I'm like, it doesn't make any sense, but it's great.
Great. Oh yeah, Everywhere in Oink Oink. An embittered, dyspeptic, and accurate report of 40 years in Hollywood.
Nice.
I kind of want to read it now.
Yeah, just that title now. I'm like, oh. Like, I feel like you could have called this the JMS autobiography. It's like about like an embittered story about Hollywood, because it's like about his several careers in writing and the way that he like has burned bridges everywhere. Like at one point, he did some pretty good writing in animation. Like he did He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. He basically, him and one other guy came up with like the whatever you call it, the book. When they created She-Ra, the spin-off of He-Man, they came up with like the concept and how everything worked in the universe. He's the one who like made the real Ghostbusters. And at the end of the first season of Real Ghostbusters, it was like the #1 animated show on television. And then these consultants came in and were like, we want to change all of these things about it. And he's like, but that will completely ruin everything about it. Not only that, but your suggestions are super sexist and super racist. And the executives were like, well, no, these guys have done good work for us in the past. I think we need to listen to them. And he's like, okay, if you're going to do all this stuff, then I'm leaving. And they're like, oh, we're sorry to see you go then. And so he left, and they made all the changes, and the show like fell horribly. And then eventually they brought him back, and he was like, okay, I'll come back if you let me undo all that stuff that you made me do. And they're like, okay, fine. We want our show to be back on top again.
Right.
But like, so he makes a name for himself in animation, and then like completely burns that down with this article that he writes about like the super shady stuff going on with the censors and like how they're in bed with like consultants and executives and stuff and messing everything up. And they're like, basically every animation studio is like, you will never work in animation in this town again. And he's like, and I never did. So then he goes to like live action television, where he basically does the same thing and like burns all of his bridges. So he has to move into like movies. And I was just like, wow, you're okay.
The guy sounds like the guy has integrity, or at least,
well, that's definitely the way that he puts it.
When he tells the story,
yeah,
it sounds like, yeah.
It's always him. He leaves shows for reasons of integrity, and then his his agent is like, you got to stop doing this. You're getting a reputation for being difficult because you keep leaving shows. And he's like, oh, I don't know what to tell you.
Hey, it seems to have worked out for him. So,
well, yeah, right. Yeah. So yeah, whatever goes.
Yeah. And for Christmas, my brother gave me the new Quentin Tarantino book.
Ooh, there's a Quentin Tarantino book?
Cinema Speculation. Oh. Yeah, I don't know when it...
Cinema Speculation, there it is.
Which I have not started reading yet, but I'm reading The Flap, and organized around key American films from the 1970s, all of which he first saw as a young moviegoer at the time. This book is as intellectually rigorous and insightful as it is rollicking and entertaining.
Oh, well, there you go.
At once film criticism, film theory, a feat of reporting, and a wonderful personal history, it is all written in the singular voice, recognizable immediately as QT's.
Oh, good. I'm glad that the voice is recognizable. Apparently that book came out 11/01/22. So, not like super new, but pretty new.
Because the price tag, which my brother did not remove before giving me the book, says 12/5/2023 on it. So,
interesting.
Maybe that's just when they stocked the book or something.
Yeah, could be.
And the copyright page does say 2022, so I will look forward to reading that.
Okay. Well, we got into all of that, which we shouldn't have. So I guess let's wrap it up.
I think I'll just cut all that out and put it as like a bonus or something.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna wrap it up there. So.